that shot right there, they had a cable on the helmet, which as I went back, it pulled the helmet off, and the chainmail over my head was quite loose, so I just was able to fling my head back, and it came off like I didn't look like a goon.
I love what Sergio did in this scene, both in terms of his performance, but also in the way he kept you amped up. I remember even after takes, he would make a face at you or just try and keep you angry. And I think one of the results of this is that the scene is actually quite intense, just based on the fact that you really do feel like you guys want to kill each other.
When there's like one shot at the end, you said this like not PG that when I stab him, and it isn't like and you said it's the only shot that you couldn't use because it wasn't PG when I like have that bloodthirsty look on my face.
There was one, yes, where you looked a little bit too bloodthirsty.
Does His Highness need a respite?
5 minutes.
Free.
I love that. They're trying to remain strong and then they just go, oh.
As your trusty steed will.
Lucy.
She got through. See, he's really worried about Lucy because Lucy's the important one.
Thanks. Well, you were busy.
Joke, by the way.
You are, though.
No, I'm not. I'm just the one who never says I told you so.
This was every time we shot the guys, because of the different schedules and so on, we would almost always end up shooting those guys last thing in the evening, and we generally had overcast weather between about 4 or 5, and we'd always think it was time to pack up for the day, and we'd just hang around, and about 7 o'clock the sun would pop out just above the mountains, and we'd have about a half an hour of this incredible golden backlight. And Pier Francesco was always going, a Roman light has arrived.
Will and Anna, I think that's the first time in both of the films when the Pevensie children have actually shown some kind of affection towards each other. Apart from...
What, we all hug Skandar?
No, apart from the hugging of Skandar, it's just Skandar who gets all the hugs.
I hug you at the stone table.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, in this film... Actually, I'm going to take back what I said. In this film, that's the only sign of affection that the Pevensie children show to each other.
You hug Will in the bear scene.
Yeah.
Good point.
And in the Aslan scene.
I'm just going to shut up.
It's the only time in this 5 minutes
No,
where there's any affection.
no, but I feel like that's more Will and Anna. Susan and Peter. It's like a hug because they love each other. Will hugging me, it's like a hug because I'm traumatized.
And this conversation has gone way too far.
Also a moment. That is also a moment where, Anna's actually. Well, Susan's worried that she's not going to see Peter beyond this. Like, I think at this point they're really worried that he's not going to make it.
Yeah. And then she bumps him.
And I think Peter thinks that he isn't going to make it as well. Like when I was in that scene, I was completely Skandar. I was completely
talking about affection during.
I was completely thinking that I wasn't going to see him again.
This is great where Sergi just comes at you here with all this energy. He just looks so ferocious.
He looks like he wants to bite you. Like a
would.
wild animal.
No, that's actually inappropriate. He wanted to play it like a wild animal.
Look at his teeth. He's.
I love how the others just don't flinch.
This was actually one of the sequences I went relatively over in shooting. I think I went about 2 or 3 days over the scheduled amount of time, and largely it was because of the use of all these camera techniques that you guys had to do this fight over and over and over again.
You put one in the helmet at one stage, didn't you?
No, on the
on shields and underarms and yeah.
You see this shot right here when I catch the shot, that's the low angle 360-degree dolly that we use, and that was so awesome to like actually be able to look at that back. That right there as well is going back the other way.
Yeah, we just shot this fight just going round and round and round you several times.
Cool.
Yeah.
While I was spinning, the camera was spinning, and at 90 frames, it's awesome.
Half the time we would all have to like set up the shot and then run and hide behind the rocks because there was nowhere that we weren't looking as the camera went round.
Yeah.
Some of this I was actually directing from way back in the trees in order just to get the shots. And of course most of the CG characters were added much later, and in many cases there's no one out there behind in the background. In some cases there's a number of extras, but in a lot of cases there's nobody there.
I also, this next shot you're about to see, it might look like that I'm holding the blade, but I really don't. I actually hold it in the middle, and this was something that Alan and I were talking about, whether I'd actually be able to cut my hands, blah, blah, blah. But I do actually hold it right in the middle and then spin the sword out of his hand.
And also, it wasn't a real sword, it was blunt.
It wasn't?
Yeah.
I always thought it was.
But if you're holding on the side, how are you able to grip it?
I hold it there, like that. And then I do it like
There was
that.
a big discussion between Joe and Ellen, I remember, about whether you could really hold a sword like that or not.
Will, where do you actually stab him in that point? Do you stab him in the armpit or in the heart?
It's up in
His guts.
as in the book. It's basically through the bit of mail that's missing to allow for arm movement. There's no chainmail right in the underarm, so he stabs up under the arm and disables Miraz's right arm.
Like paralyzes it.
Or just if you get stabbed in the armpit, it kind of hurts. And so it's really hard to fight with that arm afterwards.
Yeah, this is arm injuries for dummies.
This is a really nice moment between you and Sergio.
And Sergio?
Between Ben and Sergio here, I think what goes on here, it was really interesting to me in terms of storytelling and the way the guys played it, because it's actually the moment in which Miraz is about to be killed is the first time he's ever been proud of Caspian, and Caspian's actually aware of that at the same time. So I think it's just a really interesting dynamic between them.
Perhaps I was wrong. Maybe you do have the makings of a Talmarin king, after all.
That still makes me...
Very
And
convenient.
having to hit that grass, that was pretty tough on the day.
I remember missing it a couple of times and then panicking that I would break the swords.
And it would flick up into Sergio's face.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep your life. But I am giving the Narnians back their kingdom.
I like what you did with that moment too, because I remember thinking that was going to be a proclamation, that you were going to shout that out. And when we got to the day, you were just like, I can't shout that line. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I'm
it's
so
for him.
glad that you did it that way. It just feels so much more about, it's about your decision. The fact that the Narnians get to celebrate it is their choice. You know, it's not like you're going, I'm a hero, I'm giving the Narnians back the kingdom. It was a much nicer way of
And
playing it.
interestingly, the opposite happened a few other times in the films where I wanted to say, but I'm saying it to them, and then you're saying, no, you're assuring yourself of it. And I think by the time I got to there, we traded.
Yeah.
What I like about that is that Glazell looks like he wants to be a Narnian at that point.
That's his realization that there is a better way to be a Telmarine king. I love that moment on Damien's face when he says it is over.
Yeah.
And he's
And
just got
that's
that evil
the
smile.
that's the arrow that's come from when I shot Trumpkin.
Yes.
Right.
Trumpkin's pursuers, the Telmarines.
Yes, that's
when we first
basically
met him.
he's been plotting this right since then. I think he took the arrow at that time.
Out of the table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ben,
Yes.
can I just say what an amazing performance you did in that scene?
Thank you very much.
We had a lot of fun with the design of the weaponry, because I wanted the Telmarines to be more mechanized and to have brought a new type of warfare into Narnia. We had great fun developing these ballistas and trebuchets, and we sort of made these machine gun trebuchets that actually do kind of work. They're wound by people and they can keep scooping up these boulders which they grab and fling, but it makes for a machine gun firing of boulders throughout the sequence, which largely was there to keep also the dust levels up, because I wanted this visual thing of looking through the dust and playing silhouettes, and it just was an excuse to motivate that.
I think the tactics are really clever here. I don't know how someone can think up this. Well done, writers, and
Well, this
an
is
awesome
actually
shot.
something we primarily developed with Rapin and the previs. Is the first attempt at prevising this, we were stuck with a normal situation, which you've got an army at each end of a field facing each other, they're going to charge, and it was basically the battle sequence from the last movie. So, like with everything, you try and look at it and think, okay, how can I make this different from something I've seen before? And started thinking about the how and the underground, and Rapin and his team started playing with those ideas. And we decided that if there was like this underground system, we could actually utilize that and make it really something new.
I remember seeing these shots when we were shooting somewhere else, because I think this is the second unit, these horses, and I think this is some of the most beautiful shots in the film. This cable cam apparently was one of the biggest ones.
Spider
ever
cam,
built.
yeah.
The
it's
spider
an
cam,
incredible
that's
thing.
right.
Developed originally for football games and so on. You have basically 4 cranes and a camera that can go anywhere over a huge expanse and control it very, very fast. I know, you know, sometimes second unit gets to play with all the good toys.
I know.
You just get lumped with the actors, Andrew.
Yeah, exactly.
Second unit did do a lot of good stuff.
Get ready!
I love this. Bada boom, way!
There's again a lot going on here in terms of effects, because this was a section of about, I think you were there, Ben, so you probably saw more of this than any of us, but it was a section of only about 3 columns deep, wasn't it?
There was a couple of sections. The miniature one that they built for the giant to smash the columns was only about 3 deep, but we had one that was probably 30 or 40 deep, I think.
Oh, right.
It was a full stage. You know, we got to sort of gallop down it.
Oh, no, in terms of length, but in terms of width, it was.
In terms
narrow,
of width, yeah, it was only 3 or 4, yeah.
I love
horses.
that.
And it was very, very hot.
Yeah.
I love that shot.
Yeah,
Particularly for the guys
silence.
in all the makeup and everything.
And it's the same music as when the guards fall off their horses in the river right at the beginning of the film, when the
Now,
lords.
Skandar, what
kind
happened
of-
there? I was there on that day when did that stunt.
Oh, the horse was going faster than I thought it would be. I missed it. Yeah.
And whacked your ankle.
Yeah.
Oh,
not
that's
good.
right.
Did you not know I did the entire
Yeah.
battle with a busted ankle?
I do remember that.
I did the whole battle with a busted knee.
This was some really intensive work from the motion picture company in the UK, because there's a lot going on in every one of these shots, and you know, behind there's just we had about 300 real soldiers, 40 cavalry, and probably 100 creatures, so to speak, people in blue pants, and all of the rest was added later. That's our animation supervisor from the NPC.
I love the way this sword comes into the camera as well. It's cool.
He turns,
script.
still funny.
In the script, that's described pretty badly. It's like Rip Cheap says a line, then it says something like, you know, as his blade rockets towards his eye socket. It's like, Andrew, please. God,
Andrew stopped worrying about that sort of stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love these boulders flying. You really feel them coming
Who's
straight
flying at that
you.
point? Is it the dwarves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Jimmy again.
And this machine.
After surviving his fall.
And we get the imagery again of this kind of the bald
Why do you have the
eagle
thing of them
spearing
walking over it? I thought that was
the
incredible.
front of
when I
the
saw
sort
it in
of
the previews.
huge crossbow weapons.
Yeah, I love those. I
Yeah,
love that.
what
Those
about
shots were
Lucy?
largely still in the sequence because of the weapons.
Yeah.
The ballistas
Really?
themselves
So
are so
stunning.
cool. I really wanted to see them get used.
I mean, it's really an impossible feat at this point. You really feel that the Telmarine army is closing in. and
Particularly
going
after
to
this
take us.
boulder lands.
Right.
But the movement of the Telmarine army is so creepy as well, because it's so kind of slow and
Yeah.
steady. It's just like they know they're going to win.
Yeah, it's
love
almost
this of you, Anna.
mechanized.
Well, I mean, we're sort of the gorillas in the hill, aren't we?
You know,
How
one
did
of the
you shout that so slowly?
It was very difficult. I had to practice for a long time.
A long
I love that as well.
time.
One of the challenges in this sequence, you know, because I wanted to make a PG film, I wanted to make a film that could be for a family audience, and yet this time we were dealing with battles with humans, not just creatures. And it's always easier to get away with the death of creatures than it is, particularly fictional creatures, than it is with humans. But that was one of the reasons to give the Telmarines these masks. So they became sort of faceless automatrons as opposed to people. So you weren't feeling the
That's so
same
smart.
emotion when the Narnians were killing the Telmarines as vice versa.
But as you say, I think this film, you know, one of the principal reasons that it feels darker than the first one is because it is easier to relate to in terms of
Yes.
human emotion,
Right.
and, you know, the human, you know, the ambition of the
And
Telmarine
the villains are
people.
humans.
Yeah.
I love this bit here.
I love Damien Alcazar in this sequence when he's sitting on his horse, because it's almost like he's listening to classical violins or something.
Yes,
it's
very
almost like he's almost like
self-satisfied.
bobbing along. He's like actually moving. It's a great moment. I don't know when it is, but it's coming up.
Oh, that was my
soon.
double there.
These were the last few days on set.
Yes.
These scenes.
That's me
I'm
busting
glad
on
you
me.
kept that kicking, Andrew.
There's Skandar going with 2 swords, and then suddenly we're back in New Zealand.
And actually, is this the part with the rear coming up?
Yes.
And Aslan.
Your horse riding came on so much, didn't it, Georgie?
Yeah, seriously.
Amazing.
Is this actually a horse here or not?
That bit's a fake horse.
Combination of real and fake horse.
Now
and
this
about
rear,
3
that
different people.
shot there where Lucy falls off is actually the stuntman who did that is actually a friend of mine from over a decade ago. My first professional job was Bugsy Malone in the West End, and it was a guy named Paul Lowe who played Fat Sam in Bugsy Malone in 1997 or something. And he was just a
he turned up in New
Liverpudlian
Zealand.
guy, and he just turned up in New Zealand to double Lucy
In a
just in
dress.
that one scene.
And it was
In
so
a
funny
dress.
because they were taking a picture of me, my riding double Hannah, and Paul said, "Oh, I'll get in there." And we were taking the photo, and he goes, "Look at me, all proud of being a girl."
Now this is actually some amazing CG work done by CFC, and to actually have a real person burying her face in a CG mane is no easy feat, and I'm really pleased with how they managed to pull that off. So that I think when you're watching it, you're not really thinking, well, that's a really cool CG mane. You're just caught up in the emotion of Lucy and Aslan coming together for the first time.
What's amazing as well, I think, about the bit before that was the muscle. When you see him take the guy off the horse and you see the muscle in his back leg. It's cool.
Amelia, did everyone die?
And this was when we were in a forest with lupins, and they'd basically planted, I don't know how many, purpley blue lupins, and they had the smoke and the light, and it seemed really magical. The forest actually looks like, I think it looks like the one of the old sequence. Sorry, it's the last sequence in the first film, when the Pevensies are adults.
Yes,
Looks a
it's
bit like
meant to
that
harken
one.
back to that.
It's cool.
What was it you threw up there, Ben?
My dagger.
This is an awesome camera shot as well. What was that, Andrew? That shot
This
there?
was one of the biggest camera cranes I think you can get. It goes up to 100 feet, and we had it brought in, I think, from Germany.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it was a pretty
Nice.
amazing piece of kit, as they say.
Skandar being all heroic.
I had a lot of
And Ben.
concerns originally with the cutting away to Lucy for that very calm moment in the middle of this battle with, potentially her brothers and sisters going to their death. And it ended up, to me, being a huge relief. You know, you get this barrage of battle and you get to cut away, and the contrast of those things, I think, helps us actually feel more intense than it might have otherwise felt. In some ways, you become desensitized to this kind of thing if you just have too much of it, and it loses its emotional impact.
Well, I think you actually did that on the first film as well, with My Fight with Tilda. You were cutting away to Lucy and Susan and Aslan again.
Yes, one of the things that C.S. Lewis has done continuously, and as a filmmaker, that's sort of a challenge, and it's always been a really difficult editorial challenge to kind of balance those two different paces out.
But the juxtaposition works really well.
This, from a design point of view, was difficult, and I think MPC did an amazing job with these trees, but you know, both C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were concerned about the environment, and both of them had the trees fighting back in their stories. And even though this one was written several years before, or published several years before Lord of the Rings, it had a similar thing. And whereas in the films Lord of the Rings they had these Ents, which were anthropomorphic trees, I wanted to try and make these different by just treating them as real trees and seeing how real trees could interact and fight. And he does describe them in the book as wading through the earth as someone would wade through the water. But it was some pretty challenging work.
I love that previous shot where the root goes through. That was one of those shots that we didn't get to see, obviously.
I think
while
this
we
was
were
the
shooting
last first unit shot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone ran in.
Exactly, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Actually,
cute.
I like the take that we did of that when the Telmarines all turned around and chased you guys back.
That's so cute. I wasn't there for that.
This is beautiful. This obviously is in Slovenia, but doubling for the same river that we use in the South Island of New Zealand. And it really did look CGI'd when we were there, with the river and the beach and the trees and the mountains, and you know, we had the sunset towards the end of the day. It was unbelievable.
A lovely area, and this is the Socha River in Bovich. Yeah,
this is a great moment as well when you think Lucy's going to take on the whole army.
We actually had good weather at this location.
Yeah, we did.
Although we nearly lost the bridge. We had a torrential downpour right before we started shooting. We had to get hydro engineers to come in because we thought we were going to have to divert the river because it raised to such a level that we almost lost the bridge.
I hate this because there's a little girl on the other end of the bridge and he still thinks he's going to charge. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the funniest thing about this is that there wasn't obviously a lion standing next to me. So it's basically me on one side, massive army on the other side charging towards me. And I remember Andrew shouting on a megaphone, "Don't show it in your face, don't show it in your face," because I was absolutely terrified and I was completely showing it and I had to remain strong.